Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformation. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Life Transformation Radio. I'm your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and international best-selling author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 74 countries. So whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to us for some time, I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here, we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight those transformational moments that changed our lives and how we use it to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network, Tuesday through Friday. Join our Facebook group, Life Transformation Radio Community, and never miss an episode by subscribing wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Life Transformation Radio can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, Castbox, the Himalaya app, the Google Play Music app, and now available on Pandora. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please subscribe and then leave us a rating and review to let us know how we are doing. My guests on the show are entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, and other amazing human beings that are impacting the world around them. And my guest today has done exactly that. If you have any questions for any of the guests that I bring on the show during our live broadcast, call us up at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my friend and fellow podcaster, Michael Reid. My bro, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
What's up, my brother? This is just such an honor. I appreciate you having me on.
Man, I was on your show. It is an amazing show. Started listening to a couple episodes before and after I was on the show, and you're doing well, man. You're doing very well. I like your format.
Yeah, just probably a lot like you, Sean. I really love to hear the stories of why before people have found success, like where were they when they were in the trenches. So it's definitely a blessing to be able to do it.
Absolutely, man. And so I love returning the favor whenever I'm on a podcaster show. Love returning the favor and having them come on my show. So I'm super pumped to introduce you to my listening audience and maybe pick up a couple subscribers and some new listeners along the way, man. So if you're ready to do this, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
So the title of this episode is Mighty Action Takers with podcast host Michael Reid. He is the master of marketing automation. He's the author of the book Automation, Domination, and he coined the phrase "Take Mighty Action" on his hit podcast, The Mighty Mike Show, where he encourages entrepreneurs to take mighty action in their lives. What I also want you to know is all of the show notes or all of the links are in the show notes. His podcast website, themightymikeshow.com. Automation website is mightyautomation.com. His Facebook group right there for Mighty Action Takers. Join his Facebook group. I'm in the group. It's an amazing group. And so join that Facebook group and join other Mighty Action Takers. The Facebook and Instagram links are right there in the show notes. Connect with him and let him know that you heard him here on Life Transformation Radio. His YouTube link is right there in the show notes as well. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and his podcast are there as well. Mike has also owns multiple businesses and found massive success in the legal services industry and has a passion for helping other entrepreneurs live a balanced life and encouraging them to take mighty action in their lives. So, dude, the first question I have to ask, and which I think is the most important question that you have to ask yourself, is why? So why do you do what you do?
Wow. Well, first of all, that guy you were just introducing sounds way better than me.
Doesn't it always, like when somebody introduces you, when somebody else introduces you, you're like, dang, I sound like a rock star.
Yeah, that guy you were just introducing, man, I got to meet that guy. That guy's good, yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, I would say my why, for many different cases, but for my situation right now, my why is to make a difference in the world and let other people see. Like, I want to see, like, I don't want this to sound too cliche, but this really is what it is. Like, I had a business coach, Bob Davies, who unfortunately passed away about 6 months ago. He did a skydiving thing. He was all about taking mighty action. Like, that was 100% his mantra, was to take mighty action. And he didn't use those words, but that's what he did. And he told me, he said, Michael, he said, when you get down to your goal weight, right, my goal weight is 220 pounds, and he was my business and diet coach. He said, when you get down to that goal weight, we're going to go hit the blacktop, and we're going to go skydiving together. And that very weekend, his chute didn't open. And just kind of So my why, I know we're going to get into some other questions, but my why is essentially letting people see that, and this was his thing, he said, you have more capacity to control the circumstances and events in your life than you are aware of. We all go through life with this, like, unaware of what's actually going on, just passive in our life. And if anything, that's my why, is to teach people that you actually, every little decision you make makes an impact on your life.
Wow.
That's it.
That's an amazing why. And I've gone skydiving a couple times, man. It's kind of always the thing that I don't want to think about, and it's like the chute not opening. But, like, it literally just didn't open?
And he was an instructor, so he knew what he was doing. The chute the first one didn't open, and he went to pull the second one, it didn't open, and he just, the worst case scenario happened. And so
I don't even know how that can, like, I don't know. I don't even know how that happens. That's why they have a reserve chute, just in case the first one.
Yeah, he was an instructor too.
That's so nuts.
I think that's the thing.
I wonder if they did, like, an
investigation
or something.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that's the thing with it. There can be a lot that can be learned from that. I don't know if I'll ever jump out of a plane after that, but
yeah, right.
But
right, I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I mean, it's the same thing with bungee jumping, right? I mean, the bungee cord could snap. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
But how often does that happen? Again, you can probably say the same thing. How often does a chute not open? But you never know because it could be human error. Somebody could have packed a chute and didn't pack it right. But with a bungee cord, all you have to do is hook it up, and, like, that's it. Like, you're done. But I've heard a couple times that people's like the rope on the bungee cord broke or the chute not opening. I'm just like, yep, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, but you see how quick, like, life can change, right? Like, it's like you're
sure.
here one day. That's the other part of it, right? Like, you only have this short time. It's almost like you're stepping on stage, and God or whoever the creator, whatever you believe, is like saying, okay, now it's your turn. And this little blip in time that we're here on this earth, it's our chance to go out and do something. And so why would you live as if you were, like, a cow on the farm? Like, let me go to the next grazing pasture or whatever, like, passively,
right.
Why wouldn't you just, like, say, nope, I'm going to go to this pasture because this other cow I want to go talk to is, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a terrible example.
Oh, yeah.
Just taking being aware of your actions.
Yep. Absolutely, man. But anyway, that is a really great why. I love it. I'm always fascinated by people's whys for the reasons why they do what they do, and I love it, man. I love how you articulated that. I also don't believe that life is all sunshine and rainbows, like we were kind of talking, and you had mentioned you never know when your last moment is. You never know in this little blip and this little speck of dust on a timeline, that we're here. So talk to us about transformation. The show's all about our transformative moments. What is a transformational moment in your life that put you on the path to what you're doing today?
Yeah, so that was a pretty big one, but I didn't really have a transformation at that moment. Like I thought, wow, like all these people are dying around me from cancer. This guy's died. So it just made me appreciate how short life could actually be, right? And then I thought, well, regardless, I'll never know when that time is, when my time is, right? And so
Right.
I throughout my whole life, I've been able to accomplish pretty much anything I wanted to accomplish, except for my weight. Like my weight, but I never really thought it was a problem. Like I've always been able to get the pretty girl. I've always been able to get the whatever I want. Really, honestly, like that's just the truth. And I realized like this is my one thing that I never really conquered was my weight. I was about a quarter ton man. I was literally 480 pounds. And I thought to
Wow.
myself, like, and I'm saying, let me tell you, Sean, I was running up and down the basketball court, back and forth every Wednesday night, no problem. My knees, like, they would get numb after you work, as you're working out a lot, and so I wouldn't feel it. And then
Right.
the whole next day I would be dead, But so, long story short, what happened was I decided, like, hey, this is my thing. This is my one thing that I need to conquer to get to that next level. There's this guy, I don't know if you hear him, Sean, but this guy, Les Brown, and this guy just is a legend. I mean,
Yep.
everybody
knows Les Brown.
You're probably like, okay, but I didn't. I guess that's why I said that. Like, I didn't know about him. Like, I read all these books, listened to all these videos, and all of a sudden he pops up on my YouTube, and I'm like, because I'm just getting into the speaking realm, and he's just like a legend, and I'm just like addicted to listening to everything he says. And he talks about conquering your fears. He's like, this is a quote that he says that I just love, absolutely love. He says, "Feed your faith so you can starve your doubts. Feed your faith
like
so you
that.
can starve your doubts to death." Yeah, starve your doubts to death is what he says.
Yeah.
And so I said, man, you know what? I need to feed my faith in myself that I can accomplish this thing that I've been just passively okay with. And so the transformation for me was that, like, hey, I need a daily reminder of what I put in my mouth affects my body. And I saw this guy on the ClickFunnels guy, whatever the dude, the funnel scripts. He said he grew out a long beard to reach his $10 million mark or whatever. Anyway, he was trying to reach his goal, and he did it. And he shaved his beard, and I thought, wow, that would be a great marketing tool, but it also really would be a daily reminder because I hate beard. I hate, like, neck hair.
Oh, yeah.
So the last month, I have not had flour, sugar. Well, to take it back actually a little bit, Bob Davies, my coach, he coached me not to eat flour and sugar, and like I met with him every week, right? And he got me down to lose about 100 pounds. So
Wow.
I got down to about 480, and then he died, and I thought, well, sure enough, I could just keep doing what I've been doing, right? But it started creeping back up to 400, and I thought, what the heck is am I doing different? I didn't have that daily coach. I need my weekly coach. I need my daily reminder. So that's when I recommitted. I said, no, not only am I not going to have flour and sugar, but I'm not going to have soda or fast food. And then this beard is my daily reminder. So I'm not cutting my beard until I reach my goal weight of 220 pounds.
Good.
It's gonna be long, man. But hey, hopefully not too long, right?
I feel like ZZ Top.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it gives you a reminder. We all need spiritual reminders. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
And people think spirituality is this religion. Well, I'm not spiritual because I'm not well, you don't have to be religious in order to be spiritual, and vice versa. You don't have to be spiritual to be religious, and whatever. So there are these people that I believe in a universe, and there's law of attraction, and there's this like spiritual connection between me and another person. It's like deep in our soul, and like so that's what I say. I mean, I have a couple spiritual reminders, and you have to have that. Every time you look in the mirror and you see the beard, it represents something. It's a why. If you really want to know an amazing speaker that you need to follow, Follow Eric Thomas. Follow Eric Thomas.
Okay.
They call him the hip hop preacher. One of my favorite speakers.
Yeah,
We're
I've
both
heard
from
some,
Detroit. He's amazing. And he has a video
Definitely.
that you can YouTube, and it's from the Miami Dolphins. And what you can YouTube is Eric Thomas, Miami Dolphins, and maybe include why. I don't know. But there's like a 3 to 5 minute clip where he's talking to the Miami Dolphins. And he says, you know why you lose? It's because you don't have a why for what you do. He says, when you look at, what's his name? Kevin Durant. He says, when you look at him, he's got a why. He wears a jersey number. What number? And it's remembrance of who? His coach. Who died at what age? He wears what number? He's got a why. And so he wears that jersey number in remembrance of a coach that taught him everything he knows. So that number is what represents him and what he's fighting for. And he said that the reason you don't give 110% every time is that you don't have a why for what you do. I'm like, ooh.
That's powerful.
So that's why.
Yeah, that's good.
That's why I put that question as the first question of the show is why do you do what you do? And I've had amazing answers. I've had great answers like yours. I've had, well, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of like to do it. I just kind of make money. And, you know, like I've had not so great answers. What I thought was like, well, I mean, that's their why, and I'm not going to judge. But when you have a powerful why, my speaker coach, John Vroman, who was on the show back in season 1, back in 2017, said, when your why has heart, your how has legs. And I'm like, ooh.
Oh, that's good.
That's powerful. Good. When your why has heart, your how has legs. And John Vroman has a podcast called Front Row Dads. He's got one called Front Row Factor, which is the name of his book. He's an amazing guy. And I keep that in my pocket. You know, when my why has heart, my how has legs. If you have a strong enough why, the how will reveal itself.
That's good. That's good, Sean. I got to tell you, like, you know, I hate to beat the drum at Tony Robbins all the time. I feel like I should get some kickback, you know what I mean? But, this, you know, the guy just, he's on point when you talk about spirit versus religion, right? He talks about, like, understanding himself and the connection, the metaphysical connection with yourself and your spouse and all this kind of stuff. And I just love that. If you understand your why, when times get tough, it's not going to be a matter of like, well, why am I doing this? It's like, well, I know I'm doing this. So now how? Now the question just becomes how. It's not, you know, I was listening to another guy, Tracy Davis, or no, Brian Tracy, that's his name.
Brian Tracy, yeah.
He was saying, yeah, a legend, right? And he's like, what's your how? You know, people say like, well, who and who did it and who's responsible for this and getting into the minutia of it. No, just ask how. Like, how can we fix this? How can we move forward? What are the solutions around what it is I'm trying to accomplish? You know, it's powerful.
Yep, for sure, man. Absolutely, for sure. So I got to ask you, man, what is that? Like, what is that moment? So I really want to nail this, right? I mean, I know you already answered, but like, what do you think was that pivotal moment in your life that put you on the path to what you're doing today?
Yeah, so so podcasting has been a big part of my journey for the marketing side of it, right? I feel like that's important to note is like I started out doing a podcast for process servers like private investigators. And I learned the how, right, the how to do podcasting that way. And it's such a niche industry that, you know, I got a couple 100,000 followers over the last, 5 years or whatever. And that's pretty cool. That's good. You know, it just kind of caps out because it's a really niche industry, which is fine. But I learned the how. And then but there was no passion. There was no why behind it. It was just simply to promote my business and to help other businesses, right? And then when I found my why, when I found like, hey, this is the thing I'm actually passionate about, like teaching, like showing other people that what I had to learn the hard way and what took me so long. I mean, I know I'm not that old, but like 37 years old, I'm sitting here thinking like, man, if I would have found this out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where would I be today? Where would I be today if I would have realized that I don't have to go through my life passively? I can actually take mighty action right now. Let me tell you, Sean, I was dating this girl. I was talking to this girl that I met at a conference, and I thought, and this applies to anything in your life, right? Like I was talking to this girl, and I thought, hey, she's pretty cool. She lives across the country. I'm in California. She's in Florida. I thought, you know what? Why not? So I booked a flight, spent a week over there, and I was just like, taking mighty action applies to anything, whether it's in business, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's your kid's life. I love this front row dad concept. Don't be the dad sitting in the back, row, like, yeah, I showed up or whatever. Be the guy in the front row, like clapping your hands and excited. And when they get up every morning, give them a hug and like, I'm so grateful you're in my life. Like, I feel like if we all live that way with mighty action and everything we do, then we can accomplish anything we want.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
So
for sure. I was speaking in LA just a couple of days ago. It was like Friday and Saturday, and one of the points that I was making was, what are you willing to do more of? What are you willing to do more of as a business owner? What are you willing to do more of as a spouse, as a parent, as a human being? What are you willing to do more of? And I said, how many of you have spent thousands and thousands of dollars? It was a business event, entrepreneurs and speakers, marketers. I said, how many of you have spent thousands of dollars on online courses, on books, and on coaches? How many of you have done this? A lot of people, almost every single person raises their hand. There's always like one or two that are like, nope, I got Google and YouTube. But a lot of them raise their hand. And I said, that's awesome. Now raise your hand if you spent just the same amount of money on being a good spouse and on being good, whatever. Like, you spent so much money on coaches and business and online courses to make you an awesome business owner and an awesome entrepreneur, but you haven't spent the same amount of money on what it takes to become a human being, on what it takes to be a great parent, on what it takes to become a great spouse. There's a huge gap. Yeah. People will spend $50,000 on how to become an amazing business owner, an amazing coach, but won't spend $5 on taking their kids out, but won't spend $100 on taking their spouse out. They buy them cheap gifts, or they're like, whatever, happy anniversary, love you. But it's like we don't give the same effort in business as we do vice versa. So my message to them was, what are you willing to do more of?
Yeah, that's big. I think oftentimes, from what I've noticed in myself and in others that I've led and coached, is that oftentimes they just don't believe in themselves, right? So it's like, I can see the ROI. If I spend $50,000 on this course, this class, this mastermind or whatever, like, I know I'm going to get the money back out of it because I see all these other people who've done it too, right? But what's the ROI on having a good relationship with your spouse? What's the ROI on having a good relationship with your child as they're getting ready to move out and like take off for the rest of their life? You can't really measure that. You have to just go all in, I think, and just hope for the best. Go all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's like what's the ROI to a basketball to me and you? Nothing.
Right.
But LeBron James, it's $1 billion.
Right.
So you just have to figure out what your ROI is. What's going to get you the biggest ROI? And most people think that it's, the 6 basic human needs. We talk about significance. We talk about love and connection. We talk about, all, just everything about what we need, because they are, we talk about variety. People don't like to be held down by just one thing, or certainty. They want a guarantee on some things. But once you have that contribution and the connection, the significance, whatever, if you have those 6 basic human needs, you're supposed to somehow miraculously be this amazing human being. But sometimes that's just not the case.
Yeah, the one thing I love, Sean, is that when it comes to, progression, I guess, self-mastery, the one thing that I love is that every single person is different. I mean, it would be cool if we were all the same. You could be like, well, you just didn't check box number D. That's why you haven't went on to, or whatever. Like, it would be more. It would be more.
That's how the military is.
What to do. Yeah.
You didn't
really?
check your boxes.
So like, okay. Don't. Well, you didn't reach your running goal because you didn't get up and run an extra mile every morning, right? So some things are that way, but when it comes to like business, one of the things I heard the other day that I really loved, I forget who it was, but they were saying that like, and when it comes to losing weight or whatever, like exercise, eat better. Like if you do that enough and you do it in different ways, you're eventually going to accomplish your goal. But in business, the interesting thing is something that works today may not work next year or the year after or 5 years. So it is like a test. It is like a hypothesis. Like this might work. Test it. It didn't work. Move on to the next thing. That's what I love doing.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with you. So after that transformative moment, well, let's talk about your podcast because you mentioned the podcast. Let's do that first. Talk to us about the show. What's it about? Where can they listen? And who's your audience?
Yeah, that was my transformation, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm listening to I created this podcast. I got some measure of success. I found my why, and then when I found my why, I was like, hey, I already know how to do podcasting, right? I was like, so why don't I just start this podcast? I'm not going to worry about sponsorships or any of that kind of stuff. And so I started my podcast and the Mighty Mike Show, where I interview other entrepreneurs similar to this show, where it's like, hey, what is your Mighty Action? When did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? And this kind of questions. And what my whole purpose is to show other entrepreneurs is what it's called is a journey for the entrepreneur. That's what it's called. It's the Mighty Mike Show, a journey for the entrepreneur. Because I don't know if Sean, if you noticed this, but when I started off in business learning about entrepreneurship, there were so many things, right? You go through, you learn about, sales, whether you're going to sell a product on ClickFunnels or Lead Pages or one of these things. If you're going to sell a service, if you're going to sell a course, or you're going to have a business, B2B, all these different things. Because I never went to business school, right? I had 5 kids, and I had my first kid when I was 17 years old. So right away, I've been a hustler. I've had to hustle my whole life, And so as I've been learning all these different things, I'm like, man, if I could just bring entrepreneurs on that have learned these different lessons and tried these different industries, could I shorten the learning curve for people that are entrepreneurs that want to take Mighty Action, but they're not sure what that Mighty Action is? So you're like, I think I want to have a product online. And then I interview 5 or 6 people over the course of a few months that have products or whatever, and what their why was, right? And you listen to it and you go, hey, that's similar to my why. What are they selling, or what are they doing, Yeah. So that's the whole idea. The specific kind of listener is probably someone who's trying to figure out their why, and probably somebody who has been waiting to take Mighty Action or has already taken Mighty Action and they're just a cheerleader and they want to just help others. Because that's where I'm at. I have my own journey to reach my weight loss goals, right? And so, but it's not really a health podcast. It's more about taking Mighty Action, although I do share my journey, lots about health and fitness and entrepreneurship.
Perfect. I like it. And so where do you want them to go? I know we got the MightyMikeShow.com. Apple's always a great place to find the show. So, where can they listen?
Yeah, so, you can go to themightymikeshow.com, That's the website, and I try to put all the, automatically uploads to the website. But, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, it's pretty much everywhere. Spotify, because I use Libsyn, so it automatically posts everywhere. I also I started doing my shows live on Facebook. So you can actually, if you go to the Facebook group, the Mighty Action Takers group, I actually go live in that group where you can see us, our faces, and on Facebook.
Yep.
So
very cool, man.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
video is becoming real big. So for video podcasts and stuff like that, and you can actually there was a way at one time, I don't know about now, where you can actually upload a video podcast to Apple, but I don't know about that now. But there's like a video version and an audio version. I know a couple of people that have done that. So I'm not quite sure, if it's like in a studio or whatever, it makes sense. So, so moving forward, man. So you start the show and you become the master of automation, marketing automation, which is super cool. I like that. And you wrote a book called the Domination. I love automation. A lot of my stuff is, you know what I used to do? I used to say, hey, Michael, I've got these couple dates. Just go ahead and pick one of these dates. And then somebody else emailed in and said they wanted the date. And then I got to email another guy back and say, oh, my gosh, somebody took it. Okay, scratch that one from the list. It was just, it sucked for the first 3 months of my show. It sucked. And so somebody was like, and one of the guests was literally like, bro, you've got to get Calendly. I'm like, what's Calendly? Like, man, it's a scheduling automation tool. You have to get it. And that thing saved my life. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I love Calendly.
Yeah.
And I just, so I use Calendly for my show, and I use Acuity for my one-on-one, group coaching or 30-minute no obligation phone calls or whatever. So I kind of separated them. Because they're free. They're free scheduling softwares until you want to have a bunch of different scheduling options and whatever.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was using Schedule once, and I was paying $60 a month, and I thought, and it drives people crazy that are around me, my support team and stuff. It drives them crazy because they're like, why do you always change? I'm like, I'm going to go with whatever's the best. I don't care if it takes an hour or 2 hours to switch over or do whatever. If it's the best, I switched over from Schedule once to Calendly because it was just easier to use. It had all these cool little apps and stuff.
Yep.
But
you can take money off of it. You can get paid there. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is so cool. Automation is really the key, the ticket to duplicating yourself. We always talk about, especially as entrepreneurs, man, if I could just have two of me, I could have $1 million bucks, or 2 million, right? Or whatever. And so that's what automation does. You set it in mode, you set it up, and then you just have to do a trigger. Yeah, you do one thing, and that just does 10 or 20 or 100 other things. And podcasting, I'm sure you know, Sean, it's you can create a podcast. When I create my live podcast, if it's less than 15 minutes, it'll automatically upload to Libsyn and automatically create a live, web form on YouTube and all these different places, without doing anything, just by hitting live on Facebook. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's really cool stuff.
So my friend Hani Mora created repurpose.io, and that's what I use. See, what's great about Libsyn is that you can syndicate everywhere. But I use Blog Talk Radio, which syndicates to Apple and Stitcher. So I've had to go to TuneIn and submit my RSS feed because that's where Alexa and every place pulls all the voice. That's where it pulls podcasts from, is TuneIn. So it'll say, so you'll say, Google, Alexa, whatever, play Life Transformation Radio podcast, and then it says playing Life Transformation Radio podcast from TuneIn. So you have to be on TuneIn in order to get, searched by voice. And then I've had to go to Pandora and submit my RSS feed in my show. I've had to go to Spreaker and go and submit my show. I've had to, go to all these different places, but don't have to do is submit it to YouTube because my show automatically through repurpose.io gets repurposed to its own YouTube channel, Life Transformation Radio, and my Facebook Lives get repurposed to my personal YouTube channel. And it's like, it's awesome.
Yeah, Hani's great. He's coming on my show next week, actually.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's he's
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
You guys will have a lot to talk about.
He's
That'll
a
be
great
a pretty interesting show.
Yeah, because he's all about automation. He's the automation guy, really. Like, I'm the master of automation. I got to give that title back to him. Yeah.
He's got a lot of great things happening. So, but what I want to get into is how do you elevate the world around you? After our transformative moments, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving was created now, she's educated and saved people. And you got somebody like me, suicide survivor, then becomes a suicide awareness trainer for the military to help military members and veterans not take their life. Mm-hmm. Usually after a transformational moment, you start to create programs, products, and services to capitalize on that moment. And I always tell people to let their mess be their message and the test be their testimony. And so you become that walking testimony of whatever it is that happened to you. So how do you elevate the world around you?
I love it. So, and that really comes into where we were talking about with the automation is like what allowed me originally to be able to start a podcast was I automated my legal services company, right? That's how it all began is I thought, hey, so let me just give you a quick example. So like in the mornings I would get up and I would do all my paperwork, right? And I'd have like 3 or 4 hours of paperwork. And I was like, how can I fix this? And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's like 5 pillars of things that I created. That's my Automation Domination book, right? And so each of those pillars allowed me to cut off 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to like 5 hours of time per day in the mornings. So all I had to do is go and do the deliveries of this legal services stuff or the private investigation stuff in the evening. And so I gave myself, by doing this automation, I gave myself every morning 4 or 5 hours that I could just learn marketing. So I set up the automations, I learned the marketing, I just hustled for a long time, and I figured it out, right? And so the way I'm making a difference, to answer your question now, is with my passion, with my why of taking Mighty Action, is I created Mighty Automation. The whole principle is if you can automate things and you can save yourself 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours every single day, what could you accomplish? We all say, Sean, don't you hear it? And you probably find yourself saying it sometimes. I don't know. I feel like I want to say it and I catch myself like, oh, I wish I had time for that. Right?
Yeah.
It
happens.
I wish I had, if I had just an extra hour, if I had just an extra hour. So if you can automate 1 or 2 hours of the things that you're doing in the morning and get really creative. Sometimes this could be a virtual assistant, right? Things that can't absolutely be automated. Virtual assistants, you can pay somebody and have them live lavishly for $3 or $4 an hour to accomplish some of your goals. And I know some people frown upon that or whatever with out of the country, but like if that helps you reach your goals and your dreams, that kind of automation, setting that up, then that's what you do. And so I feel like me helping people accomplish their goals and their dreams with taking Mighty Action. First of all, the hardest thing for people to do is to get moving. I don't know if you're a science guy, Sean, but they talk activation energy, the science side of it. Like once it gets moving, right? Once emotion goes in motion, it stays in motion until something stops it, a resistance over time. So activation energy in humans is high. The activation point in a human is like, we will, for example, like in America and the United States, if you, when you go in, you have to elect to be a donor, right? You have to say, I want to be a donor in order for them to donate your corpse, right? If you go to England, you have to elect to not donate your corpse because you're automatically donated. I'm pretty sure it's England or Australia. But you have to elect to not donate your corpse. So how many people do you think donate their corpse compared to the U.S., right? Everyone.
Pretty much everybody.
It's exactly flipped. It's exactly flipped. So the people who don't just don't take action. They just don't want to check the box. So they're just by default saying they want to donate themselves.
That's
when
funny.
They die. It's crazy.
That's funny. Right?
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with the actual decision. It has to do with having to make a decision.
Right. And some people are paralyzed by decision making. They're incapable of making a decision, and then because they can't decide, or like, I don't know, like, how do I decide? And or they just say they're going to do something, but they just don't. And then decision making. Some people are paralyzed by it. They're like, well, what do you think I should do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Like, they're so afraid of making the wrong decision, or some people are so afraid of getting success that they're like, oh my God, like I can't do this. Like nope. And they just rather not make a decision and just sit where they are. Comes to their comfort level. So, very good point, man. Very good point.
Well, Sean, there's one thing though about that I love what you're just saying is like that actually is exactly what the Mighty Action principle is like, for me, like when I found out like everything seems great, but I'm like struggling with some things in business, doing well in other things in business. What is that thing that's holding me back? And I'm like, it can't be my weight, right? Like, why would it be? Like, I'm accomplishing all these other things. Listen, that one thing that you make an excuse. There was a guy giving a talk one time, Sean. He was up there and he was like, and he was describing it as the spirit, prompting you, but it could be applied to anything. When just think right now as you're listening to this, what is that one thing that you've been meaning to do, but you've been making an excuse why you shouldn't do it? The thing that your wife has been telling you to do, the thing that your son has been saying, hey, or your daughter's been saying, hey, why don't we do this? That thing is different for everyone. Yep. That's the cool thing, Sean, is like you listen to it and boom, it comes into your mind. What's going to happen is the first thing that happens is you say, the excuse pops into your head of why you're not doing it again, but just pause for a second and think about your thought. That thing needs to be done.
Yeah.
And for me, it was to lose weight. So it's different for everybody though.
Yeah. Keep at it, man. Keep going. All right, man. I want to give an opportunity for as we close the show, I want to give you about 30 seconds. Give me a shameless plug. You can plug your friends' websites, Facebook, quotes, whatever it is that you want the listeners to take action on. This is your moment. Shameless plug. Go.
So, if you're, basically the whole Mighty Automation principle is that if you're looking to have some help in your website with your business, like everyone needs to have a website. With the automation domination principle, essentially, I set up 5 pillars of automation where you can have a website that generates leads. People can pay you on your website, can do any kind of data entry and integration with your CRM, and then you have to retain those customers. And one of the things I've gotten good at is creating a survey type situation where every customer is prompted to leave you a Google review or directed to give you a survey if they weren't happy with your service, and that way you retain those customers. So that's my basic automation domination principle, and you can check it out at MightyAutomation.com. And don't forget to go to the show, man, and go the Mighty Mike Show and go to iTunes everywhere and leave us a review. Certainly helps out with getting more people to see the show. iTunes rewards us for those reviews.
Yep.
So thank you for having me on.
There you go, man. Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Absolutely incredible. We dove deep, man. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Life Transformation Radio listeners, an amazing guest impacting the world around him. If anything has resonated with you and the show today, please contact Michael Reid at themightymikeshow.com. Go to Facebook and Instagram, connect with him, and let him know that you heard him here on Life Transformation Radio. As we close, I always say, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.